Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to look at within Farming Simulator 17 and the Giants Editor version here 7.0.5, the newly updated, well I say newly updated, it's been out a little while now, but the new version of the additional map types, version 1.0.0.8 I believe it is. We'll get to that in a little bit. So yeah, additional map types with our additional fruit types and all the rest of it. So let's just jump in here. I just wanted to show you this particular, what we're going to be working with here. So what I'm going to do is just close this down. And I've got the sample mod map that I've put together here, just call it mod map with all what I need in here. And then I've got the actual additional map types set up, which is version 1.0.0.8. So we're going to have a look in here and see what we've got. Now there is, like the previous version, a instructions PDF. So we'll just open that up. It does still say version 1.0.0.7, but it does now have the additional setup for the bell types. I will not be getting into bell types. I'm just going to work with the base additional fruit types that come with all their setup, the Triticale and the Millet and the oat rye. Now I might do the oat and rye slightly differently because I want to have different textures for the rye. But we'll see how that goes. And yeah, we'll have a little bit of a look through all these different parameters and all the rest of it as we go through it. So anyway, let's close that down. So what we're going to do here is, first of all, and I would highly recommend that you go through the instructions and follow them because they are laid out quite well and they are very, very helpful. So first thing we need to look at here is what to bring over into where. So if we come through the actual bits and pieces here, we can see we've got it suggests to make a backup of your folder. I would say that's a good idea. So we then need to bring over the folders foliage, fruit huds, tip on ground and bale types, and they must be placed within the main directory of the map, so where the mod desk is located. So let's do that. So we've got bales, foliage, fruit huds and tip on ground. So I'm going to highlight all of those and then Control C to copy. I'll open up my mod map here, Control V, and we'll paste them in. Now because we've obviously got some foliage channels already on the mod map for the in-game foliage types, it's going to give us this pop-up box, but that's perfectly fine. So we're going to say yes, we want to merge the folder, and it will then just bring that in and add in the additional bits and pieces to it as it needs to, the Millet, the Triticale and all the other stuff. So fantastic. Okay, so the next thing we need to do here is come on down, and then we need to bring over our P systems and bits and pieces. So we're going to bring that into the sample entries for mod desk can be found. So yeah, so okay, so what we need to do here is basically we've got these two folders, P systems, which are fill planes and particle animations, then we've got our textures, which has got our distance to fuse channels in and whatever else. So the easiest thing to do here is just with the actual maps folder highlighted, Control C, come into your mod map, whatever that may be, Control V, and it will ask us if we want to merge the maps folder, because we've obviously already got one, so we do. So we're going to click yes, and it will then bring all that in. If we open that up, we can see now that our P systems folder with our fill planes, particle animations and our textures has been updated with some additional distance to fuse channels and whatever else. So fantastic. So that's all great. We've got all our bits and pieces in there, so that's good. We obviously need to bring our script over, so we're going to have a look to see what we've got next. Again, I would highly recommend you follow through the actual instructions here. I've done this a few times, but just showing you that it is well laid out and it does help to read through it and all the rest of it. So it's going to talk about adding in your new categories and whatever else, bits and pieces between your out and end sections, and so on and so on. Adding in the new fruit types also creates fill types, and we've got our HUDs, ground tip directories, etc, etc. And you can read through all of this stuff and change these parameters to suit what you want to get out of it, whether it's categorized as a animal feed or a pig feed or whatever else. Change your price per litre to give you a better return on your particular fruit type, and whatever else, whether it shows in the price table and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, we've got park animations and all that, whether it's going to use heap for tip on ground, and so on and so on. So again, I'll let you have a look through all of that. And we've got down here again whether it's going to be used as a protein, a grain, an earth root for pigs, and so on and so on. And it gives a little bit of information if you want to start adding in your own HUDs and also different fruit type DDS files and all the rest of it, what to actually save them at as format wise and all that sort of stuff. And again, for your tip on ground, and what you need to name the texture files and all that sort of stuff. So that's really beneficial. It also comes down to explain here about your conversion for your fruit density.gdm, because the actual GDM that comes with the map itself will only support 2 kinds of fruit types. So you can only add 2 extra fruit types before you need to convert your fruit_density.gdm to make it bigger, basically, so that it can accept more of those changes, because it's limited to 2 at the moment. So we're going to have a look at that and see how we do that. I can't remember which version I have. It's probably that version. Let's have a look what we've got up here. Yes, so I've got the correct version, so that's good. So we need to have the GRLE converter 7.0.1, which you can download from the GDN, the Giants Developer Network site, or I'm sure it's available on various different mod sites, mod hoster and things like that. But if you can't find it by doing a search, then I would go over to the Giants Developer Network site. I will put a link in the description and download it from there. Now, one thing to note, you will need to be registered on the Giants Developer Network. Just fill in your details, register. It's totally free, and you can download things like Giants Editor and the converter and tutorials and bits and pieces. There's access to the forums, obviously, if you have any questions. Very helpful over there. So yeah, I would highly recommend that you get it from there, but if you don't want to do that, then I'm sure you'll be able to find it from somewhere else. Okay, so we're going to need to have a play around with that. So we can do that and change our fruit density GDM, no problem. And then we need to have a look at some channels and change them appropriately to allow the new fruit types to be accepted within the map itself. So we need to change it. This is what we will have now, and this is what we need to change it to. So that's fine, we can do that. We'll have a look at that. So you will need a text editor. Again, I would recommend Notepad++. That's what I use. I did use a couple of different ones for a little period, but I've always come back to Notepad++. I find it the most easy, friendly piece of kit to use. Is Aptana Studio, I think, or something like that. I used that for a little while. It's got far too much rubbish on the screen. Perhaps maybe if you were doing more advanced stuff, then it may be much better, but I find that this Notepad++ is the way to go for stuff like this, at least anyway. For me anyway. So we're going to have a play around with that, and we're going to adjust some channels. Then we need to adjust the actual parts in the fruit type section and whatever else. So we'll look at that as well. And yeah, we'll go through that as we go through it. So what I need to do here is, I'm pretty much done there. I don't need that open anymore. So we're going to bring over our script. So we're going to copy that, bring that over into my main folder where my mod desk is, like so. And then I'm going to go into the actual example here for the mod desk to see what I need to add into my own mod desk for my mod map. So I'm going to open that in Notepad++. And if we come through here, I have got some text in my L10N section here I need to bring over. Now, I would only bring over what you need. I'm not going to be looking at foods, not going to be looking at industry. I'm not going to be looking at compost, seeds, or any of that stuff. So what I would say here is you need to first of all check your own sample mod map, whatever that may be. If you've downloaded one, it may come with an L10N section. If you've done what I've done here and created your own from the Giants editor, then you won't probably have one, just depends. If you haven't got one that's similar to what I've got here, then you will need to copy the whole thing, including tags. So what I would do is highlight the first tag there, scroll down, highlight the last one. So it highlights the entire section. Control C to copy it. Come over. We need to look in where it's actually been placed as well. So underneath our maps section here, let's have a look. So underneath our maps, so what we need to do here is come under our multiplayer section here where it says multiplayer supported equals true. So what I'm going to do is create a couple lines and then paste it in there like so, because I want this part to be at the bottom, and then I'll just create another couple of lines to separate that. And then what I can do here is go through it and see what I've got and what I want to keep and what I want to get rid of. I don't want lime, so I'm going to basically highlight that section and then delete it. I don't want compost. I'll do these one at a time. You could highlight all of them, sand and all that, whatever works for you, but I'm going to do them individually so I don't screw something up, because you've only got to miss off a tag or something silly on the end of it, and then it won't your map won't run, so it just won't load in game. So it's better to do individual parts, and then you just limit the errors. So I don't want compost, so with that highlighted I'm going to delete it. I don't want seeds too, so I'm going to get rid of that. Don't want sand, so I'm going to get rid of that. Don't want foods or industry. I will do these together just to speed things up. So I don't want either of those. So all I've got here is my oat, winrow, rye, spelt, triticale and millet. So perfect. So that's the only ones I will be adding into the map itself. And you can then have a play around with some of the others, the sand and seeds too and all that. And whatever else. But that's not what I will be doing. I'll just be doing these ones here today. So I'm going to go ahead and save. Then I'll come back over to the actual example here for the additional map types. We've got some tags here and our extra source files and our actual path file name to the script that I want to be using. So I'm going to copy that in its entirety because I don't have any scripts running on the mod map. If you do download a mod map that does have some scripts, then you will have the extra source files section possibly already in there, but I haven't got any of that, so I need to copy the lot. So if you don't have any extra source files or scripts, then you will need to do the same. So we'll put that in there like so, and then I'm going to come over to the actual additional map type section. Now again, like I say, I'm just going to be working with the oat, rye, spelt, triticale and millet. But what I want to do here, instead of having to mess about copying bits and pieces, I'm going to copy the whole lot. So I'm going to click on the first tag at the top, click on the last tag with my left shift key held down so it highlights all of it. Control C to copy, bring it over into my mod map here, create a couple more lines just to keep things a bit separated here. I'm going to paste it in. Then what I'm going to do is actually highlight the parts that I want to get rid of and delete them. So don't need any of that, and I don't need any of that, so I'm going to remove all of that. So it just leaves what I want to work with on this particular map. So we'll go back over into our example here, and there's nothing further that we need to bring over into our mod desk, so we can now close that down. Go ahead and save our mod desk here for the actual mod map, our sample mod map. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. Now again, because this is a sample mod map, you could start messing around with some bits and pieces up here, put your own description in, change the icon picture and stuff like that, but I'm not going to mess about with it too much. because it's based on Goldcrest Valley, all of that will be just relevant to what I need for this particular setup. So I'm going to go ahead and close that down. So what we need to do now, if we come back over into here, we've got some additional parts for our map entries, so we need to have a look at those. So again, I would recommend that you open this in Notepad++, because this is set up as a text document. If I double click it, it will just open it in Notepad++. There's not much to see in here, so you can actually work out quite easily what it's all about. But I would recommend that we work with Notepad++ on that. And again, for our actual map entries here, the actual map 01.0.3d. So if we go over to here, we've got our map 01.0.3d. And if I open that in Notepad++, we've got all our file IDs and our materials section and our foliage layers and foliage sublayers. So, and I want to obviously work with that within Notepad++. So if I come over to here and work with these within Notepad++, it just basically keeps everything structured similar. So yeah, I'm going to go with that. So I'll edit with this one with Notepad++, and we can see here we've got some additional file IDs, some material types, and our foliage sublayers. Before we actually get into that though, what we need to do is have a look at our density map ID, our GRLE or GDM I think it's called now, because we're going to be adding in more than 2 additional fruit types. If we were to do this without making that change, then this would obviously not work correctly. So before we go too deep into that, I'm going to close that down, and I will then close that down just for now. So if we go into our map 01, we've got a fruit density.gdm. As I said before, it will only accept 2 additional fruit types, but we're going to be adding in a few more. So we need to convert this, and we need to convert it into a PNG so that Giants Editor can see it, and then it will automatically generate a new GDM that will be updated and will accept further additional fruit types. So we need this piece of software called the GRLE converter. 7.0.1 is the one I would recommend that you use, because it's got a few bits and pieces in here that work with GRLEs and GDMs, whereas I believe the previous version only worked with GRLEs and not GDMs, but I could be wrong. But this version seems to work quite well. I would highly recommend that you have this particular folder, once you've downloaded it and unzipped it and extracted it, have this folder on your desktop or in the same folder structure as your sample mod map. I would highly recommend the desktop is the best place to do all this. The reason why I say that is because I've had this particular folder, the actual converter folder, in my secondary hard drive, and the actual conversion would not work properly because it's too far apart or something. I don't know, I don't understand how that setup works, but for whatever reason it just wouldn't work the way it's meant to work. So I'd highly recommend that you put everything on your desktop, your sample mod map and your GRLE converter folder here, and then they are in the same sort of setup so that it can work as it's intended to work. At least that's my experience anyway. But you can have a play around with that and see how you get on. So all I'm going to do here is I'm going to click on my fruit density.gdm, and I'm going to copy it over to the convert.command, and if I then hover over it, it'll say open with convert.command, and if I let go, this little DOS window will open up, and it will say that it's converting it and all the rest of it, and it's saving to fruit_density.png, sorry, and I press any key to continue, which is what I will do. By doing it in this particular way, which is why I say it's best to have them both on the desktop, what it will do, and using this convert.command, it will automatically generate my new fruit_density PNG in the same folder in my actual mod map folder. So there's no copying and pasting and Control X and cutting and all the rest of it. You don't need to mess around with any of that. Just do it this way, and it will automatically generate your new PGN file within this mod map folder. So it just saves a lot of messing around and whatever else. So anyway, I'm done with that. I can close that down. One thing you must do here to make this work properly is to actually remove the fruit_density.gdm. So we need to highlight that, hit delete, and it will then obviously say, do we want to get rid of it? We do, yes. And actually we can click on our fruit density.png, and if I open that up, we can see what it looks like. So it just gives us an idea of what is actually on the map. Makes absolutely no sense, I know, but the game understands it, and that's what's important. So now that we have that, we can come back into our map 01.0.3d, open this up in Notepad++, and if we go back into our instructions, just so you can see what I'm doing here. Like I said, I've done this a few times, so I kind of have an idea of what I'm doing here, but just so you can see it clearly on the screen, we need to come down into our foliage layers and our density map ID for our harvestable crops, and change the num channels and the num type index channel from 9 and 4 to 12 and 5. So that's what we will do. So if we go back into our map 01.0.3d here, now you can just scroll down if you want to, but the way that it does that, it will just zip through so quickly. You could also scroll, obviously, whatever else, but I find the easiest way is to just use the search window. So if we go left control and F on the keyboard, which will bring up my find window. You can obviously also do this from search, so we just go search and then find, and in here you can then type in whatever you want. So if I know that I'm going to be working with the foliage the foliage multi-layers, then I want to be searching for one that's already existent within the map, a standard fruit type if you like. So we could then come in here and just type in wheat, and if I then go find next, it will take me down to my wheat. Now if you notice there, I've actually had the match whole word only box ticked, so it found wheat, because if you untick that, it will find anything on them in the actual i3D that contains wheat, and I wanted to be specific to only find the foliage sublayer that contained wheat. Okay, so now that we actually have got to where we need to get to, so we've got our foliage multi-layer and our density map ID, so we need to have a look at that. So it says 49 there, and I've got 41, I believe. Yeah, 41, but that's fine. Don't need to worry about that. That may update as I save it later on, we'll see. So what I need to do here is obviously change these. So we've got 9, 4 and 4, so let's just double check. So we have got 9, 4 and 4. What I need to do is change that to 12, 5 and 5. So let's do exactly that. So we'll go 12, 5 and 5, like so. Then it says, if we continue on down a little bit further, we also need to change our density map channel offset and our num density map channels from 4 to 5. So if I come back in here, we've got our density map type index and our density map channel offset and our num density map channels, and the ones it's asking us to change is the density map channel offset and the num density map channels. So we need to change this one and this one, and they need to be changed to 5 and 5. So we need to go through all of those. So if we go 5 and then change all of these, keeping in mind that we need to leave the sugar beets and the potatoes as they are, because they actually stay at 8 and 1. So if we come down to our potato column, we need to leave that alone on 8 and 1, and then continue on down, so 5 and 5, and then our sugar beet column, we need to leave that on 8 and 1. So we'll just continue on down, like so. There we go, perfect. And I'll go ahead and save. Now what I would probably recommend here before we start adding in our additional fruit types would be to actually close this down and then open up the map in Giants editor which I'll do now, and then save the map. This will update my fruit density GDM, and look for any errors. So if you haven't got the console open, just go into Window and then Console, and if there are any errors, then it will be highlighted up here. It might say warning or error or whatever else. If there are any, then you need to fix those first. So if you've put something in the wrong place, then or not put something in at all, it's missing, it will tell you that in here, and you need to pay attention to that and then fix that before you continue, because if there are errors and you continue on down adding in your additional fruit types, you're just going to start with a bad map and you'll end up with an even worse one. So it's best to fix them right off the bat at the start, before you start adding in lots more stuff. Okay, so I've got no errors, so fantastic. So what I can do here is just click on Save i3D file. So I'll do that and just let it update. I don't need to move anywhere on the map at all or anything, just save it. I'm going to grab a drink a second, bear with me. Okay, so now the map has saved, and it tells me down the bottom here that it's saved in X amount of milliseconds, and that's fine, so excellent. Close that down. If I go back into my Map01 folder here, we can see that the Giants Editor session has created my new fruit_density.gdm. So what I need to do here is click on the fruit_density.png and delete it, because I don't need it anymore. It's now been updated. The fruit_density.gdm has been updated, and it will now accept more than 2 additional fruit types, so fantastic. So now that I've done that, I can actually now come back in to my map01.i3d in Giants Editor, and I can then open up my additional map types folder and start adding in some bits and pieces. So what I want to do here is go into the layers for the map, edit that with Notepad++. Now I was going to have a play around with some different foliage textures for the rye, but I think what I will do for this video is just look at what we've got here and go with it, because otherwise the video will end up being massively long and I don't want to do that. So might have a play around with that in a different video, we'll see. So anyway, first of all, what I would recommend is to do each one of these additional fruit types separately. So do your oat and rye, do your Triticale and your Spelt, because that shares the same diffuse channel. Probably best to do them together, and then do your millet afterwards. Don't go bish bosh, copy the whole lot, and then find that you've got an error and don't know what you've done wrong. It may be okay, you may want to go with that and just see what happens. Entirely up to you. It has been structured in that way that you can copy it all in one go, but for me, I like to get each individual fruit type into the map, test it, make sure it's working, update the i3D, then do the next one. It's just the way I do it, but you can have a play around and choose the best version or the best way that suits you. So I'm going to start at the top here with the oat rye. So I'm going to highlight the sections here, including the distance channels. So we'll go from 6 to 12, and we'll copy all of that. Come over into my map i3D here, create a new line and paste it in. So we've got that. Then I'm going to come down and find the actual oat rye material section. Now we need to actually change the custom shader ID. As far as I know, all of the Goldcrest Valley based maps have a custom shader ID of 49. But if you weren't too sure on it, you could always check in your Map01 i3D and just again bring up your search menu, and you could use wheat. So what I'll do is I'll uncheck the match whole word only, and if I then scroll through and we come to the actual wheat material, I can look across here and we've got our foliage wheat and our custom shader ID is 49. So what I can do now is just basically come over and put in that space there 49, like so. If you don't put the right number in there, the actual crop won't display correctly on the screen. It won't sort of rock backwards and forwards like it's meant to do, and it won't flow like it's meant to do. It may not even show up at all. But it's best to put something in there. I would probably recommend you put the right number in, but anyway, moving on. So let's choose this. So we'll select all of that and copy it. Come back over into here. And we need to get to the end of the materials section. Again, you can always scroll down, but I just tend to find, if you bring up your find window again, type in materials, which I've done many times, type in materials, click find next, and it will take you to the bottom of the actual materials section. We'll create our new line and then paste in our new foliage oat rye and all the bits and pieces set up for that. Fantastic. So we can come back over. If we continue on down, we've got a section down the bottom here. Now what it's saying here is if we wanted to have it set up for standard, so if we were only adding in 2 additional fruit types, for example oat and rye, then we would copy these lines. If we want to add in more than 2, or we are working with a map that has chopped straw, then we would need to use these bonds down the bottom here, because chopped straw actually counts as an additional fruit type as well. It may even take up more than 1 additional fruit type slot if you like, so it may max out the fruit_density.gdm just by using chopped straw. I don't know, because I've never played around with the chopped straw stuff, at least not for Farm Sim 17. So so if you haven't got chopped straw and you're only interested in adding in 2 additional fruit types, use these lines. If you have got chopped straw or you want to add in more than 2 additional fruit types, then use these lines, because they have already been adapted to work with the updated channel offsets and the num density map channels. So I'm going to choose the oat and rye because that's what I'm working with, because we've got our foliage oat rye. So I'm going to choose oat and rye, copy those, come back over, and I need to just scroll down a little bit, and we can see here we've got our foliage multi-layer with all of our original harvestable crops. So I need to create a new line and then paste in my new foliage types, my new fruit types, and then just double check that the actual density map type index does follow on from the last in-game one. So we've got poplar at 12 and my oat is at 13 and 14 for my rye. So for example, if you weren't going to be copying in oat and rye and you wanted to only copy in millet or something like that, the way it's set up in the example, text here is the density map type index would be set at 17. So if you were only copying millet, what I would do is once you've copied it in, change it to 13 so that it follows on in numerical order. But again, you know, work with that how you see fit. So we've got those in, so that's fine, and I've got all the bits and pieces set up, so I'm going to go ahead and save. Have a quick look through this. It's nothing really too much to worry about there. The only thing I would say we might need to have a play around with, if we come right across to the end here, we've got a block shape ID for both our oat and rye. You may need to adapt those somewhat to display correctly in game. So what we'll do is open up the map in Giants Editor and we'll paint down some oat and rye and see what they look like. Hopefully they look okay. If not, then we may need to come back in here and change the block shape ID to get it to work properly, but we'll have a look at that in a minute. So now that I've saved that, I can go and close that down and we'll minimize that. Don't need that for now. So we'll open up Giants Editor here. And we'll just find an area. Perfect, this will do. So we'll just find an area here, and what I want to do is go Window, Train Editing. And if I scroll down, we've got our foliage layer painting and our foliage layer. So if we open this up, we can now see that we've got oat and rye added in. So if I go oat to start with, and we then need to choose a foliage channel, so we'll try 7. I'm going to use my train foliage paint mode and then make my brush a bit bigger, and we can see that that paints on the map and looks really, really good. So I'm okay with that. So we'll go into the foliage layer and change to rye. Again, we'll choose 7 and we'll paint that down. Fantastic. So they both look actually quite good, to be fair. Not too bad at all. Slightly differently textured, so yeah, I'm really pleased with that. So we're going to leave that alone. That's perfectly fine. They've gone into the game okay, and I don't need to change anything there. The distance diffuse channels aren't perfect, but you can play around with those if you so see fit to do so. Wouldn't worry about it too much. I tend not to bother me. It's more about what the actual foliage itself looks like when we're up close. But you know, some people do find that it is preferable as you get further away from it. It looks like it's meant to look, but you know, that's whatever. Okay, so that's fine. That's in the map, so I'm okay with that. So I'm just going to delete that. There we go, perfect. And we'll then save. And it's important that you save the session within Giants Editor, because what that will do is update the map i3D, and it will then integrate all of the bits and pieces. It will change the file IDs, the material IDs and all that, and update them to then incorporate them within the actual map itself and the way that the i3D is structured. Okay, so now that we've got that one in there, we're happy with that, we can move on. So we'll come back into our examples here. What I want to do is bring over the Triticale and our Spelt, because they are set up with the same diffuse. So we're going to come into here and we'll do from the foliage channel, including all of our distance channels and everything else. So we'll copy all of that, come back into the mod map, create a new line, paste it in, and then we'll come down to our material. And again, I need to change the actual custom shader ID. So I'm going to overwrite all of that with 49 again. I'm going to copy all of that, come over, and I'm going to go down to the end of the material section, create my new line, paste it in. Come back into the example section here, and now I need to copy in my rye and Triticale. Sorry, Spelt and Triticale, not rye. So we've got our Spelt and Triticale, so I need to copy those lines, come back over, scroll down just a little bit, create my new line and paste it in. And we'll just tidy up the text a little bit. There we go, just making sure that my num density type index follows on from the last. Perfect, we've chosen our correct channel offset and all the rest of it, 5 and 5. So that's all good. Again, we may need to change our block shape ID. We don't know that yet. We'll find that out shortly once we get back in the Giants Editor. So I've got all the information in there. Okay, so again, I'm going to go ahead and save, and we'll close that down. Minimize that, open up the Giants Editor session again. Again, checking in here for errors. Excellent, we've got no errors. So with the terrain editing window still open, I'm going to scroll down to the foliage layer painting section, open this up, and we've now got our Spelt and Triticale. So click on Spelt and open up the terrain foliage paint mode, get my paintbrush up, choose 7 and paint it onto the map. And there we go, that's what that looks like. So that's what Spelt looks like. And then we will choose Triticale, again with 7 highlighted, we'll paint that onto the map. And there we go, so slightly different to our Spelt, so that's perfectly fine. Excellent, all showing up perfectly fine there. Excellent, no issues whatsoever. Don't need to change any block shape IDs, it all looks fantastic, so that's good. So what we will do is just make the brush really big and delete all of that. And then we'll go ahead and save and update the map, and I will grab another drink. Okay, so now that that's saved, we can exit out the giant inserter session and move on to the last one that I'm going to do today, which is our millet. So again, we need to come into our example here and choose the file IDs. So we'll do that with the distance channels as well. Control C to copy those. We will reopen up the map, the mod map i3D, and then paste that in like so. Come down to our material, again remembering to change our custom shader ID section with our new shader of 49. So we will now paste that in and copy it, and then we'll bring it over, go back into our find end of our materials section, create a new line and paste it in, and then we go back into our example, and again using the foliage sublayers with the additional or the adapted channel offsets and whatever else, we're going to choose our millet. Then Control C to copy that, come back over, scroll down a little bit further, create my new line, paste it in. Now when you do this, you may find that at the end of the line the foliage motor layer actually moves. That's supposed to be over here, not at the end there. So what you need to do is, without moving anything, just press enter on your keyboard, or return, whatever you want to call it. I call it enter, but that's fine, just because that's what it says on the keyboard. And that will then align everything correctly. If you don't do that, it will leave the foliage multi-layer end tag all the way over here in your map i3D, and your game will not start. Don't know why it does it, I haven't got a clue, but it does. I've come across it a couple times and it's just really easy to fix. Just press enter. Once you've pasted it in, scroll across, and if it is actually showing up at the end of your line, just press enter and it will then put it back where it's meant to be. And you might then need to align it somewhat so it follows suit with the entry tag and your exit tag line up. But that's fine. We've got that. Checking our density map type index follows on numerically, and we've got our bits and pieces there. Again, this particular case we may need to change the block shape ID, hopefully not, but we might do. Again, we'll check that when we get it into giant inserter. So now we've got all that set up, click save. I'm going to close that down. I won't save it because I might use a different map that doesn't have a block shape ID of not 49. Going to open up the map in giant inserter again. No errors, so that's fantastic. It's always good to see no errors. So again, we'll go into our foliage layer painting, and we've got millet, so brilliant. So we'll choose millet, select our train foliage paint mode brush here, 7, paint it on the map, and it looks pretty good to me. There we go, look at that. So no additional changes required to the block shape ID, it all shows up a-okay, so fantastic. Again, distance map channels are a little bit here, but I think that's probably using rape, but that's fine, you know, whatever. If you feel that that's wrong, then you may need to change it to something that you prefer, but for me that's acceptable. Okay, so what we need to do now is update our map 01 with the actual path file names to our new particle systems and fill planes. So if we come back into our additional map type section here with the examples, we've got a map.xml entries text. So again, I would recommend you open this in Notepad++. So we'll open that up, and you can see here we've got an example of what we will have on the map already, which would be the in-game standard giants, particle animations and everything else. But we need to add in a few extra lines here for the new additional particle systems and fill planes for our bits and pieces that we've brought into the map, and then it will show us down the bottom here what it should look like once we've brought it all over. So what I need to do here is go into my map, and I'm going to open up my maps folder, map01.xml. What I need to do is actually copy over these particular lines here. So I need to highlight those, Control C to copy, come over, create a new line, paste them in, and then I'll just tidy up the text here so it all lines up and looks a bit sort of representable like it's meant to. So there we go. We've now got our new particle systems and fill planes all added in as they should be. Fantastic. So I can go ahead and save that and close that down. Don't need that any further. And there we go. Now that all should join up, and basically those path file names are pointing into our P systems folder for our fill planes and our particle animations for our new additional fruit types. But most importantly here, once we've added in a new fruit type, obviously we want to be able to store this and we want to be able to sell it. Otherwise, what's the point really? So what we need to do here is have a bit of a play around with the map01.xml, and we need to identify our storage and our sell points. So I'm just going to work with this particular storage area here. I believe that on this particular map there is only the one anyway, and I'll just work with a sell point which is relatively close, which I believe is over here, but we'll get to that in a minute. So what we need to do first of all is come in here, and if I click on the actual grain station here, I'll close down the terrain editing window and I'll open up the user attributes. And if we open up the unloading station farm transform group, in here we will have a transform group called gameplay. So if I open that up, we'll have another transform group, and the one we're looking for is our trigger position. If we click on that, in our user attributes we will get what is referred to as an index. So if I go back into my map folder, we have a map01.xml. So if I bring that up in Notepad++, we can match our index here, which is farm silo. So on our Giants editor session we have index farm_silo, and in our map01.xml we have farm_silo. So those match, that's perfect. So that's what we're looking for. What we need to do here is add in our additional fruit types. Now what I would probably recommend, the best way to do this would be to actually open up your mod desk where you added in your additional fruit types and copy and paste the actual name in from here. That way you will limit the spelling errors and things like that by copying and pasting, because they must match exactly the same. If you have a capital letter in the wrong place, or whatever else, any errors between, it won't know what it is and it won't match up. So it's important that you get the spelling correct. So what I will do here is in my map01 for my farm silo, I'm going to copy this line for the soybeans. So I'm going to highlight it, Control C to copy it, and then I'm going to create a new line and paste it in. Then on my mod desk I'm going to go copy the oat. I know oat is easy to spell, but and I'm going to paste it in. Then what I'm going to do is create another new line, and I'm going to copy it and then paste it again. Now what you could do here, probably the best way, is to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I've got 5 additional fruit types. So we've got 1, 2. So if I come to the end here, 3, 4, 5, and I can then paste that one in, and again and again. So we've got our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now what I can do is go rye and then put that into there, and then go my spelt, copy that, put that into there, and then my triticale, put that in, and then lastly my millet, like so. So we've now got that updated in the map01.xml. But what we also need to do here is have a bit of a change in our user attribute, because in here we've got our path file name to that particular XML file, which is this one we're working with here. But because this is for my sample mod map that I've created here, I need to have the user attribute point to that XML. And because we've got this $data or $data, however you want to say that, it's actually going to point this particular trigger to the Giants version, the one that is set up for the original Goldcrest Valley map. So what I need to do is change that path file name to point to my own map01.xml, and the way that I do that is to just click in there and remove the $data, however you want to say that. So it now reads maps01.xml, and I can check that path file name because I'm in my mod folder here, so I've got maps and then map01.xml. So that path file name works, and if I then hit the tab key, it locks in that change. So we've now set that one up to accept all of my additional fruit types. Fantastic. So what I will do is just zip over here to the grain mill, or whatever this is called, Pacific Grain, and we need to do the same thing again here. So if I click on the trigger, it will automatically take me to my trigger position. That was a bit of luck, but and we've got an index of grain elevator. So what I need to do is go back into my map01.xml here, and we'll just save it so that it accepts the changes that I made previously. And we'll come down. What we're looking for is our index of grain elevator. Just double check that. Index of grain elevator, elevator, fantastic. So again, what I need to do is copy a line, so it doesn't matter, you can choose whichever one you want. Now obviously your price scaling may be different, so if you look down further, in this particular cell point in the rail road mill, it has a price scale of 1.1, but for this particular case it is a price scale of 1, so you might want to play around with those a little bit, up to you entirely. So we're going to just stick it with it as it is default. So I'm going to choose the sugar beet, I'm going to copy that, and then I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we've got our 5 additional fruit types. So I'll paste that one in, and we'll keep going down. It's just going to save me time. So again, now what I can do is I can either go back to my mod desk and copy it from here, whichever's easier, or I can just use it from here. So I'm going to use it from here, that's fine. So we'll copy out and come down. Oops, wrong one. So we need to make sure we don't delete the sugar beet, otherwise it won't work. So we'll do oat, rye, spelt, triticale, and our millet. So that particular cell point will now accept all of our additional fruit types. Now you might want to have a bit of a experiment so that each individual cell point on your map you're working with or creating or whatever else won't accept all of them. It will only accept certain types. You know, experiment with that as you see fit and whatever works for you. So I'm going to just go with that one anyway now for testing. So we've got that one, and that's how you would set that up. Again, all I'm going to be harvesting here, I believe, was the rye and the millet, just testing those particular 2 fruit types. If they work, I'd probably say there's a good fair bet that the others work perfectly fine as well, but you can experiment with that as well yourselves. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. We'll close that down, close the mod desk, we don't need that. And again, like we did before with the other trigger, we need to change our XML path file name here. So we just removed the $data, so it now points to that same map01.xml, and hit the tab key to lock in the change. Perfect. And then we'll come back over just so we save the position somewhere on our main farm. It's not really relevant, but I like to do that anyway, so we'll go ahead and click save. That will then update all of that information, and when we get into game, hopefully we'll be in the right place and we can then harvest what we need, put it into the appropriate places and sell it. So we'll just test that out very briefly, and then we'll get to an end here shortly. So I'll see you in a little bit once we get all this into game, and hopefully everything will work as we want it to. So see you in a little bit. Okay, so here we are back in game again, and what I'm going to do here is just bring up the actual escape menu again, and we can see we have our oat here in 25 and 9. We have some triticale, millet. Let's have a look at the growth stages. So we've got 27, which is spelt, and we also have, so let's go over here so we can have a look at these. So we've got our 27, which is our spelt. So that would be our spelt, and then we have our oats in this field. Is that right? Yeah, so we've got oats in that field. Yeah. So we've got oats in 25, and then we've got our spelt in 27. So not looking too bad. So what I'll do here is I'm just going to start a mission and just see what happens. So let's get a fairly, yeah, that'll do. So we'll just test this out and see what happens here. I'm just looking to see that we get all of our correct particle animations and fill planes and all the rest of it. So we won't harvest too much of this. Just want to check everything's working as it's supposed to. So we'll get this fired up and we'll get into here. And yep, we have our particle animations there for our header, and we have our particle animations coming out on the hopper there and everything else. Our straw set up. So let's just see if we switch over to, yep, when we get our windrow. So fantastic, looking really good. Excellent. So that's not too bad. I think that looks pretty good. That's working okay. I mean, obviously you wouldn't need a windrow because it's a mission, so it would be pointless because you can't pick it up, but because it disappears at the end of the thingamajigamy. But yeah, at the end of the mission the straw disappears, so that's of no use. I don't actually know, I've never tested this. If I was to bring a if I was actually to bring a tractor and tipper trailer into the field before I started the mission, whether I would be able to actually empty this into the trailer and then keep it. But I'm pretty sure as soon as I leave the field it would disappear. I don't know. I'm not sure. I've never tested it, but might do that one day just to see what happens, or maybe tip it on the ground somewhere and see if it stays there after you've completed the mission. Anyway, we won't go any further. We know that's working. We've got good particle animations and fill planes and the rest of it. So I'm just going to leave the field and fail the mission. And then what I'll do is I'll go over to the other field and we'll have a look at the oats. So let's come out of there and we'll go to field 25 and we'll do that. And we'll do this. Let's get a, there we go, perfect, that'll do. So let's just test this out. So we'll just test out the oats here and see what we get for that as well. Can I do this without knocking every sign over, maybe? Yes, look at that, awesome. So let's connect up to here and we'll get this opened up. Switch it on. Get it fired up, and yep, we have our particle animations there as well. So fantastic. So both of our oats and our spelt are working. I'm pretty sure the others will work. If these work, then the others more than likely will as well. We have our HUD display in the bottom right there working perfectly okay. So fantastic. Everything there seems to be fine. Let's see if we get straw. We do indeed. So we can get straw off of our oats as well. Fantastic. So yeah, there we go, excellent. Everything seems to be working fine there. So we've added in our sell points. I'm not going to test these because I think the video is now just getting massively long. I'll leave you to experiment with that. As long as you've set up the map01.xml correctly and you've changed the user attribute correctly in the path file name for the XML file, you should have no problems there whatsoever. And just, as I say, set up your individual sell points as you see fit for whatever crop type you want to sell wherever on the map that you're working with, and yeah, you should be fine there. So I'm going to end the video here, I think. Let's get out of this thing. So thanks very much for watching. I hope that this was a worthwhile update to the additional map types script and getting all the fruit types into the map and playing around with block shape IDs and all the rest of it to get it all to work. You may need to play around with it further. This is just a brief test of all the bits and pieces that I've put in. You may need to have a bit more of a play just to get it all working 100%. I've not played around with this script for a little while, but what I have done with it seems to be working really well. So thanks very much for watching, and I will catch you on the next one.